Today's guest is a really interesting woman with lots going on in her life, and we've just had a little chat offline about how much is going on. But Dr. Caroline Lloyd is a GP with a multifaceted career. So after graduating from Monash University, she's worked in traditional general practice, women's health, sexual health, cosmetic dermatology, hypnotherapy, bariatric surgery, and has now found her passion in mental health. She's completed her Masters of Counselling, which led to training in EMDR, which I'm going to get Caroline to talk to us all about. And she now specialises in the treatment of trauma and eating disorders using EMDR. So where she helps to get her clients unstuck and from their past traumas and facilitating their progress to a calmer, more connected and fulfilling life. And Caroline works at women's mental health facilities, in her own counselling private practice and in general practice. And when she's not working, which I'm not quite sure when that is, she enjoys family time, her dogs, gardening and renovating. Oh my gosh, Caroline, welcome. Welcome to the Happiness Hive podcast.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, I really love connecting. I love connecting with women that have got different experiences and just finding out how they do life. You sound like you're a busy woman. Are you a busy woman?
I am quite busy, yes. I managed to squeeze in a few things, but yes.
Do you relate to busy? Like you are busy?
I am busy. Yes, I definitely am too. I'm probably too busy, and I'm probably looking at ways to become a bit less busy in my life. But I actually do love busy. Like I do enjoy it. I love a project, and I love getting started on things. And maybe I don't love my to-do list, but but I love the rewards that it brings to kind of tick things off.
Yeah, and I'm busy. I'm a busy woman as well. And often when I ask busy women, do they relate to it? They often say, "Oh, that's just life, though. That's life." And there can be a good busy. There can also be the flip side, and we'll maybe dive into that a little bit later. And I also hear people saying, if you want something done, ask a busy person.
That is absolutely true. Yes, I definitely relate to that, because I think maybe we've developed some kind of strategies to sort of do things right then and there and, put them on the to-do list and kind of achieve some things. So
And I think, I don't know about you, am I wired that way? I think maybe we'll get into this afterwards about that nature versus nurture. What are your thoughts? Wired that way, or
wired that way?
Conditioning of what we've learned.
Well, I think in my family, there's definitely a culture of achievement. Like we are all quite, Dad was a really, big achiever professionally, and Mum always had stuff going on. So I probably got a little bit of both. Mum's always got lots of hobbies and lots of things going on, and she's a fantastic organizer. So I think I probably got my organising ability from her. But I have to say they are probably a bit better at relaxing than I am. So.
That's it. I haven't really thought about that, and that just popped out of my mouth. But I wouldn't say that I've come from a family of high achievers. I'd say that I've come from a family of capable, but there was never pressure. It was kind of like, do your own kind of thing. I'm a good organizer, but that was not my natural. It wasn't until I started progressing up the leadership ranks when I had to then manage and lead other people. And I would just kind of leave things to the last minute. Was very, very capable, but that might not have been the best strategy when you're leading a team of others. And I learned to get very organised then. I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
And so it's probably a combination of both, isn't it?
It probably is. Yeah. I think people naturally have a different energy levels. So I think some people are more kind of have the laid back sort of vibe, and others have the, just naturally I wouldn't call myself a high energy person, but I suppose I just focus it quite well.
Yeah, do you know what I'm saying? Some people do say I'm high energy, but I'm not an in-your-face high energy. I think I focus it and utilise it well.
Yeah.
So what stage of life? Busy? We've ticked that off. What stage of life are you at? Just so our listeners can kind of get the vibe of where you're at.
Yeah. Well, I am actually quite surprisingly in a fantastic stage of life, and I would never have predicted this.
Oh.
Yeah, that in my, I suppose you could call it nearly mid-50s, which is also just a surprise by itself that this managed to creep up so quickly. But so in my mid-50s, I have discovered my passion, and, it feels like a calling to me, my career now. So having kind of just cruised through my previous career and raised my children, and they're now out of the house, so I am an empty nester.
Oh, have they come back? Mine have come back and left and come back.
Not yet. So we'll see. I suppose that might play out. But I've got one at uni and both at uni.
Yeah.
So one's living at uni and one's living independently. So, so the beginning of last year, when the younger one moved out, was like, what am I going to do now? Like, in terms of my personal life, that was a little bit of a shake-up, and I had to refocus a bit of energy on friends. And I was a single mum for about over maybe 10 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I decided to focus a little bit on dating, and that has paid off.
Oh, well done.
Yes.
Good on you. I guess there's probably some women that are, and blokes too, tips on that. What was
eHarmony.
eHarmony, yeah. I've got another girlfriend who's just found somebody really in her mid-50s as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So great.
I loved it. I tried all the apps and they didn't really do it for me. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
But eHarmony seemed to, match me with people with
lovely.
a lot of values. And I think that was really, really, really important for me. But the other tip I would say is be brave. Do it.
Do it.
You actually just have to feel the fear and do it anyway, because it can be quite challenging to go out back into the dating world again. And I didn't realise we would be talking about dating, but anyway.
No, me either. I love it. I love how the chats kind of go where they need to. So dating advice,
So that would be my advice. If you're a bit scared, then yes, that is very reasonable to be scared and fearful and worried and all of those sort of things. And it's not as bad as what you think it will be. And, just take sensible steps and move forward. So, yeah.
Do you know what, when you're saying that, because no, that's not what I was predicting either that we would be talking about. But if we take out dating advice and insert whatever it is that you want to achieve, I think those tips are the same. Like, be brave and feel the fear and do it anyway. Like, if you want it, be sensible, take precautions. So it's about doing our risk assessment around it.
Yeah.
You said you were very clear about your values and that you met somebody who was in alignment. So when we're wanting to achieve something, it's about knowing what's important to us.
Yeah.
And then, knowing what's important so we can set up boundaries around that. So even though, dating advice, it still relates to me. That relates to anything that we wanted to achieve. Life in general.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What else? There was something that you said I was going to go back to. It's surprisingly a great place to be in life.
Yeah.
And the thing that intrigued me was that you said surprisingly.
Yes.
What's that? Tell me more about that.
Yes. So I guess, so that relates also to my career and where I'm at in my career. So, I'm really into the therapy side of things now, and I probably identify myself as a trauma therapist and an EMDR therapist, and that's really become my great passion in life. And I really do love it and
yes,
think that everyone should have it. And we can talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
But I hadn't expected to find something that I was so passionate about and really was prepared to kind of hop into with both feet at this stage of my career. And, you know, I have friends who are looking at retirement or sort of winding down. And for me, I'm just the opposite. I'm like, I'm revving up.
Oh, I love that. I love it. Everybody out there listening, that don't let age be a barrier in any way. And
absolutely.
It's about just and that things can kind of spring into life when you're least expecting it. So that's
right.
Cool. Yeah.
That's right.
Sorry, I cut you off there. You were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say, because I've worked part-time for such a long time because of my kids, and that was also one of my values, that I wanted to be there as much as I could for them. So, yes, I worked part-time, and I was very, very lucky to be able to do that. I know that that's that's not a privilege that everyone can have. But yes, I was lucky to do that. But now I'm working, you know, 45, 50 hours a week. Big hours. And that's also a bit of a surprise to me. But also, you know, I go to work because I love it and I want to be there, and I want to, you know, I don't want to turn my clients away.
Yes.
That's the overlap between the doctor and the therapist. Like, doctors call patients and therapists it's clients. So I'm trying to you know, wean myself onto clients. But
what's that mind shift? Because that's interesting in itself, that different mind shift around patients in one hat that you're wearing, because you're still a GP, aren't you?
I am, yes, very part-time. That's just a half a day a week, Yeah,
okay. So still a GP with patients, trauma therapist with clients?
Clients, that's right, yeah.
What's the thing, like, what goes on for you around that difference? Is there a difference for you? I'm just intrigued.
So I guess in theory, clients, with patients, it's a little bit, possibly a bit more paternalistic. So with patients, it's a little bit like, I give you advice, you follow it. I give you a prescription, you take it, type of thing. I mean, obviously nowadays, most people have a different relationship with a GP, and it's much more collaborative than it used to be. But with clients, I guess there's a little bit of a different emphasis. I guess, you know, I just see myself as there to help my clients heal and to provide the right environment for their brain to heal. So, you know, our brains have an enormous capacity to heal by themselves, but given the right environment, they can do it a lot quicker. So, and that's pretty much all that EMDR is about. It's just about providing the environment for our brains to make better sense of where we're at and what happened and the memories that they have. And so I guess client is more collaborative and more empowering.
I kind of get that too. And, you know, it might be semantics. Often people say to me, you know, am I a coach or am I a mentor or am I a this or that? And it's kind of like, I get a bit funny with labels sometimes because I'm really about helping people. And I have a whole, you know, toolkit, you know, carpet bag of different things that I use. And sometimes it's about, you know, I'm not a pure coach. I'm not a, you know, I have a whole range of things that I do. So labels sometimes.
I think there is a big overlap too.
Yes,
between
absolutely.
Coaching and mentoring and therapy.
And sometimes I tell people I never tell them what they should do, but I will share in teaching mode, I guess. There's sometimes I'm just completely a sounding board. Sometimes I just ask lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of questions. Sometimes I just shut up and let them talk. So it really depends on where they're at.
Oh, look, a good question can be, you know, the pivoting point.
Yes. I'm going to go back to EMDR in a minute because I do want to explore that. How did you get into you? So you've said that you had a fairly high achieving family. So getting into medicine, was that something that you just always knew you wanted to do, or how did that come about?
Yes, in a word. So I remember wanting to be a doctor when I was a child, like quite young. Yeah, yeah. And I always had an interest in anatomy and, fixing things and fixing, that sort of Florence Nightingale.
Yes, yeah.
So I remember wanting to be a doctor since I was very little. I also, when I went through high school, I wanted to be an actor, and that sort of came. Yeah, we haven't talked about this, but yeah. So I actually, halfway through med school, I had a bit of a career crisis and took a year off and did a lot of acting, and then went back to med school and finished. And then after my intern year and second year residency, then I went out into general practice, which you could do at the time. Nowadays you can't, but
yeah.
At the time you could. So went into general practice and worked part-time and pursued an acting career.
Oh my gosh, I did not know all of this. Oh, this is so fun.
It was fun. It was fun. Yeah. Met a lot of amazing people, had some great experiences and had some moderate success. I can't
What
say.
sort of acting? Was it like stage?
Yeah, I did the works. I did stage and I did film and television and I did some commercials and I did some voiceover and
oh my gosh.
Yeah, did some writing, produced a couple of shows myself, and that's
just on the side, just while you were becoming a GP. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Maybe we need to do a part 2 on this one and see.
It actually feels like a very, very long time ago.
Yeah. So you then kind of focused on the medicine.
Yes. So when I had my kids, I was still doing the acting, and it just became quite hard to do that with kids. And I remember,
like being a GP wasn't. So the acting was.
The acting is much, like, in terms of time management.
Interesting.
Acting and children are very difficult combination.
Yeah. Okay.
So I remember, getting phone calls the night before and saying, "Oh, you need to be on set at 6 a.m. and me going, "Okay, hi, Mum."
Yeah, childcare.
Yeah.
Childcare. And were you a single parent at that stage as well?
Not initially, but then when my kids were 2 and 5, that's when the partnership broke down, and I was a single parent from then.
So lots of juggling. Gosh. So you became a GP, and then you said to me that you kind of have found your calling now. It's later. So it sounds like it was kind of a calling anyway. So wanting to be a doctor from a very young age sounds like that was you knew what you wanted to do, but then you said to me that now it feels like I've really found my calling. Yeah. And that's with the trauma therapy.
I just love it. I love talking to people about their lives, and the thing about being an EMDR therapist as opposed to a therapist who doesn't do EMDR.
So what's EMDR? Tell us what EMDR is, because I deliberately didn't say that at the beginning, but some people might not be familiar with the term.
Yes. So EMDR stands for eye movement, desensitisation and reprocessing.
Yeah.
So it's a very long name for a therapy in which you basically, so we work on difficult memories one by one.
Yeah.
And process them using eye movement and some other techniques, but often eye movement to help people shift their idea of the memory and help them lose the distress associated with the memory, and also help them learn something better about themselves attached to that memory. So, most people will have some uncomfortable or distressing memories. And so, I think everybody should do EMDR.
I was going to, you just read my mind, because I was going to ask, is it just for people who have experienced major trauma, or is it like when you just said then about difficult memories, it could be things that hold them back. It's not always
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's not always a big T trauma.
No.
So we talk about big T trauma and little T trauma.
Yeah.
And big
What
T
are they?
trauma, so big T trauma is the things that everybody recognises as trauma. Like it might be a car accident, or, it might be medical trauma, having cancer and having an operation, and, even just those things are definitely traumatic. So bullying, an accident at work, so those sort of things, war, that kind of thing, we recognise as being trauma. We all know that that's trauma. So that's the big T trauma. The small T trauma is a bit more subtle, and it's things like interpersonal trauma. So it might be, people telling you that you're no good, or that you'll never make a good doctor, or that you'll, never make a good XYZ, or bullying is another one that can be very subtle, especially for women. So girls at school bully in much more subtle sort of interpersonal ways, and that can be horrendously traumatic. But not recognised, even by teachers sometimes. So, divorce can be either the big T trauma or the small T trauma. And, and the small T trauma is often not recognised. And it's often about the support that you don't have. So little things can happen to everybody, and they do. Someone says a mean comment in the street, or there's an episode of road rage and you're on the receiving end. Like, that's not big T trauma, but it is small T trauma. And then if you go home and you talk to your partner about it, or you talk to a friend about it and have a good old debrief, then you've got enough support, and you hear some sensible things, and you hear, that somebody loves you, and that you weren't at fault, and that everything's okay, and you hear those sort of supportive things, then it's not necessarily traumatic. But if you go home and you can't talk to anyone about it, you bottle it up and you don't know what to think, and it sort of overlays on a whole lot of other negative experiences you've had, then it certainly can be trauma. It's
interesting when you're describing that. I also work in the corporate space doing executive coaching and consultancy, and these last couple of weeks I've been working on a project that's just going off the rails, but it's going off the rails because of people not respecting and valuing each other's differences, and having certain expectations about, what it should be, but they all have very different expectations. So I've been meeting with people, and some of the people there are traumatized from this experience. And I would say that it's been the little T trauma, but I would predict, and in the corporate context, I deliberately haven't gone there, but I would predict that they've had some other trauma going on in life, that this is kind of just this on its own is traumatic. But a couple of the people haven't had the outlet to they've bottled things up, and because it's a work context, they felt that it's not okay to sort of say how they're feeling and all sorts of things. So a few of them did kind of release what was going on, and you could see afterwards just somebody's actually listened to me without judgment, without saying I'm not a good person. So
valuable. That's so valuable what you've helped them with there.
Yes. And so how does EMDR work with that? How do you how do you do it? How do you do it? What do you do with it?
So it sounds very woo-woo, but it's not. There's
woo-woo's right up our alley, but it's also scientific as well, isn't it?
It's very scientific, and there's a lot of good evidence to show that it actually does work. So I'll just preface that. So it's very much an evidence-based therapy. What we do is we take whatever memory it is. So it might be, that moment in the boardroom where your supervisor said, well, where's that thing I asked you for, and humiliated you in front of the whole board, whatever it might be. So we take that moment and we sort of dissect it down a little bit. So we figure out the the moment of the trauma that best represents the trauma. We figure out what you learned about yourself in that moment. So that negative cognition about yourself. So that may be, I'm not good enough, say, for example, with that example. And then we delve into the emotions that come up with it, which may be, for example, shame or embarrassment or sadness. It might be anger. Whatever it might be, and we just label that, and then we find out where that sits in your body. So where do you feel that? And for shame, it's often in the face. So, you know, they often feel, you know, hot cheeks, or it might be gut. So
it might be on there.
Might be chest. It's quite often chest. Some people it's in their hands, because that's where they, you know, that's where they're holding it. So we set up the memory like that, and then we start what's called the bilateral stimulation. So that's either the eye movements, so watching a pointer go backwards and forwards, or we do some tapping, which is like tapping on the shoulders like that, or we use some other strategies to help the brain kind of let go of that moment. So we do that for about 20 or 30 seconds, then we check in and see what's going on, and then we start again. And then, so we do that process for as long as it takes for that memory to lose its pain. And what we often find is that during that process, people will slip into another memory. So so their brain holds that memory in connection with others that have a similar theme. So they might go to last week when someone did something similar, or when they were 6 years old and they had to stand up in front of the class and the teacher said something not so nice about the work that they were presenting, or, you know, or being at home and, you know, with mum and dad when they were 14 and them saying something critical, or, you know, so the brain will make the connections that it needs to make, and it can heal all of those connections through that one memory. So there's some what's called globalization of the good effect of dealing with that particular memory. So, so sometimes sessions are really quite emotional and bring up a lot of past stuff. You know, might be to do with the parents, having very critical parents, or unrealistic expectations of that person, or and it might be other experiences that they've had as an adult. But we sort of keep following those little detours until we come to a place of resolution. And then we install a positive cognition. So that might be, instead of I'm not good enough, it might be I'm very good at what I do, or I'm a good person, or, you know, something along those lines. And we install that, and we check in with the body, make sure the body's clear, and if the body's clear, then the session's done. So,
oh my gosh, I love all of that stuff, and it's, you know, it's very similar to what I do. Now, I'm not a EMD therapist, but some of the practices that I use through the coaching, the NLP, the neuralistic programming, timeline therapy, they're same but different in about getting. And I find that the memory is almost that is opening the door.
Yes.
And then there's other things. And quite often, you probably will find this as well, but quite often my clients will say, oh my gosh, I've just had this memory pop into my mind that I haven't even thought about for, you know, and it's something like when I was 3 years old, and it's kind of like, that's the subconscious bringing that memory forward, that it's part of the chain, isn't it?
That's exactly right. It's that web, that interconnected web of neural networks.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. Tell me, Caroline, we were talking about the EMDR when they were doing it in a lot of like group session, like group, and please correct me if I'm wrong about this, but when they, a lot of natural disasters and where that came, can you just talk me through that a little bit more?
Yes. So this is actually a really exciting development in EMDR, and also the direction that I'm sort of wanting to go in at the moment. So So EMDR was developed as a very individual therapy. So it's a one-on-one, you talk a bit in, while it's happening, and you know your client well, they know you, there's sort of relational healing as well. But group EMDR is something different. So, group EMDR was originally, I believe, developed in Mexico in relation to the enormous earthquake that happened there. I'm not quite sure of the timeline, but I think it was in the 90s.
90s. I'm not exactly sure either. But
by a Mexican therapist who wanted to be able to develop it, to provide it en masse to all his community. So he developed this protocol for group EMDR, whereby, and there's amazing pictures of him sitting in amongst rubble and demolished houses and, 60 or 70 people sort of sitting around in a circle, all doing EMDR on themselves. So how that works is that, and he, in the picture, he's standing there with this great big
like a megaphone, or
a megaphone, giving instructions via megaphone, so everyone can hear it, which is so totally different to kind of this very cloistered experience that we have in our rooms. But so they go through a similar process. They identify the upsetting part of the memory and what it meant to them, and then they do the butterfly tap, which is a form of bilateral stimulation. So they use that instead of eye movements in that particular scenario. And what that does is it works the same way as the eye movements. Because Can
I just interrupt? So for the people watching YouTube, you'll see Caroline and I doing the butterfly
tap.
Mm-hmm. For those that are listening, we've just got our arms crossed across our heart region and just tapping our shoulders just slowly, aren't we?
So there's a difference with slow and fast tapping.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the faster tapping.
That's me. I'll be a fast tapper. I like the slow taps.
So fast tapping is more for reprocessing. So that's more for addressing the actual acute memory. And we use slow tapping for resourcing or for giving you something pleasant. So
interesting, because when I do the fast tap, actually my natural tendency was to do slow, but the fast tap was almost like shake it out. And the slow tap feels very comforting and nurturing and calming. Is that what it's meant to?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So we'll often use the slow, it's either called the butterfly hug or butterfly tapping. We'll often use the slow tapping if we feel that people need more calm, more love, more strength, more kindness, like whatever it is that they need, we can resource them with that and just do that nice slow tapping and alongside some imagery with the calm place or light stream. You might be aware of these. You're nodding.
I love it. No, I love it. I'm just kind of in this calm place now, and Caroline's got a very calm demeanour, and her setting's very calm as well.
So, that's lovely. Thank you.
Sorry, I interrupted you when we were doing the butterfly tap. You were talking about doing that in that group setting as well.
So since then, the group EMDR has been expanded to lots of different scenarios. So it's been used for healthcare providers. It's been used for, I'm just thinking about a couple of studies that have been published. So it's been used in a wide variety of sessions, but, in settings, say, for example, with people working with adolescents in a residential unit, because there's a fair bit of trauma that goes on there. So for the carers working in those units, and for people who are frontline workers.
Yes.
And COVID, it was used during COVID online. So that's a whole nother level. So group EMDR online
Wow.
is kind of the way of the future, I think.
That's cool. And you can get results. You can get great results
You can,
online as well. Online.
Yes, you absolutely can.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
How did the eye movements work then? Like, without going into the whole, because you're talking about that, like I can feel the energy in my body shifted quite dramatically. It's got a really nice calming effect. Just really quickly, how do the eye movements work?
Yes, so there's a lot of discussion about that, actually, like how they actually work, on a neurophysiological basis, and we don't 100% know how. There's discussion about REM sleep, because that's your eyes go backwards and forwards during REM sleep, and there's discussion about the left and right hemispheres and increasing blood flow and connection between the left and the right hemispheres. There's also a newer theory that has been sort of put forward by some exceedingly clever therapists in the Netherlands who have developed EMDR 2.0, which is a slightly different iteration of EMDR. So their theory is that it's more of a competitive taxation of the working memory rather than anything to do with left and right. So their theory is that we bring the memory up from long-term memory to short-term memory. Yeah. And whilst the memory is in the short-term memory, it's actually more pliable. Yes. So we can, in one sense, degrade it by playing with it while it's in the short-term memory. I don't want to sort of playing with it sounds a bit frivolous, but we're not frivolous about this. But
you're kind of addressing it in the short term.
Addressing it, yes, exactly right. Yeah. And the way that we do that is give the short-term memory some tasks to do. So this is one task. This is another task, noticing the tapping. Yeah. And we can do counting, or we can do mathematics, or we can do spelling, or we can do, repeating words, or we can do tapping in different patterns. Yeah. So this EMDR 2.0 has been a bit of a game changer in the field.
Wow.
And it actually works even quicker than EMDR.
Wow. Yeah. And you can get quick results, can't you? Like with this, there's that you can actually access and get quick results.
Yes, absolutely. And life-changing results in, a few sessions. And I don't want to promise that for everybody.
No.
That's what I see pretty regularly. Like, I do work at a private women's only mental health facility. And so often when I admit women, I'll admit them for 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, we'll have 5 sessions of EMDR. And that can really make an extraordinary difference in really some quite major trauma, for example, sexual trauma, childhood trauma. Some really quite difficult traumas, like even just 5 sessions in an inpatient setting can really make a life-changing difference to people. So,
And also, it's different to just talk therapy, isn't it? Like talk therapy can be good, but it can also be a longer journey and using it for different things. So it's about using the modality, and so in combination with or on its own, but it's therapy to be able to address like you said, the difficult memories, the trauma.
Yes.
And then the bits that are kind of, I picture it in my mind, like when you said before that they're connected or they're associated. It's like a chain of events, like a chain of things that it can really help to address that, can't it?
Absolutely. And people will find that, one good thorough session on one thing, actually, the benefit spreads, to other aspects of your life. Yes. So, if you learn something different about yourself, then that will become apparent in all aspects of your life.
Yes.
So if you suddenly get the idea that, yes, I am a worthy person, or I am good at what I do. You know, that has reverberations through your whole life. And it's,
oh my gosh, it so does. It's like that ripple effect, isn't it? And then the decisions that you make and the boundaries that you put in place, and
absolutely.
you know, why you do things versus why you don't do things, and stuff like, you know, I was talking with you offline about this when we caught up before about, you know, when I was younger and my mum passed away, we had no counselling at all. It was kind of like, this has happened, don't ever talk about it again, just get on with life. And I didn't really, and it sounds a bit funny even saying it to myself, but didn't associate that with trauma. Of course, there was a level of me going, yes, that was trauma, but I didn't really feel that that was trauma until just recently.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, and some of the stuff with my processing of information when I was going through school, I was not a good student. And I would say that's because my brain had actually shut down. The trauma was affecting me and my learning. Definitely. And I've done a lot of work since around that.
Yeah.
It has been good. But those old stories of saying, oh my gosh, I'm just stupid.
Yeah.
Versus, oh my gosh, my mother has just died. And,
yes, that's right.
You know, and things. So it does affect you. And that's so I've just turned 57.
Yeah.
That was when I was 12. So that's a lot of years to, I mean, not to say that there's still residual bits there, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's quite common, isn't it, for other people that have trauma, that they sometimes don't associate or label it as trauma.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And you know, that thing about never talk of it again, you know, put it away, move on, be brave, you know, never speak of this again. You know, what that does is it locks it in the long-term memory.
Yes.
So it makes the natural processing that we all do really hard to do if you're not ever allowed to talk or think or mention it. And it's just kind of put away. And you actually have to use a lot of brain energy to keep that trauma locked away.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, my gosh.
So it takes a lot of determination to kind of, you know, shove that in the corner and never think of it again. And so, you know, your brain was doing a lot of stuff just to keeping that locked away. So you didn't really have freedom to kind of, you know, to do your schoolwork and concentrate on this. It was, you know, it was a lot about, I imagine, you know, not thinking about.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I haven't done EMDR. I've done a lot of stuff. And when I say that everything's been completely healed, probably not, but some things to keep me active for the next little while.
Yes.
But it comes up, like it does come up. It comes up. And I think with, you know, different big T trauma, little T trauma.
Yeah.
Things, it can just come up when you're not expecting it, and having some strategies in how to deal with that.
That's right. And sometimes, you know, the things that you learn about yourself, you know, say, I don't know if you mind if I use your example.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, for people who have lost a parent at a young age, you know, quite often that gives them what we call an abandonment schema.
Yes.
So, you know, an abandonment schema, that's actually a word sort of from schema therapy, which is also an amazing therapy. It's great therapy. But it basically sort of holds in concrete that idea that people I love are going to leave me. And so and I'm not suggesting that this was the case for you, Catherine. So forgive me.
No, you go. Yeah, go.
Terms, but you know, that really plays out in a lot of different ways. So relationships, or sometimes even your relationship with your own children, or you know, and every time something happens where someone does leave you, which would normally happen to everyone, like best friend goes overseas to London for a year, for example, that can really strongly reactivate that abandonment schema, and suddenly that wound, which is not healed, is just open to the air for everyone, you know, for you to feel. So it can make
and I see mine. I don't necessarily associate so much with the abandonment, not saying that that's not there, but what I've seen with people that have experienced something where they have felt abandoned often get impacts with relationships, and that over responsibility or over caring, or getting into relationships that might not be the most healthy relationships for them, because that sense of wanting to be needed.
That's right. And
Mine was very much about, the
Mm.
thing that played out for me is not knowing, almost that not knowing what to do, that feeling of being unsure.
Yeah.
Because your role model in life is, your female role model in life is not there. And so everything, what has played out for me is this, oh my God, like I've got no idea what I'm doing, which is funny, because very capable and very competent on the external, because I had to be strong, independent, but that internal sense of, I got no idea.
Yeah.
So that plays out. And I think you probably experience that. I don't know. A lot of my clients experience something similar to that as well.
Yes, indeed. Yes, I'd probably call that a negative cognition. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. That might be a negative cognition. And and that might relate to some period after the trauma, not the actual
not the actual trauma itself. So it's interesting, isn't it? And that's that sort of string of memories. So
that's right.
Oh my gosh, where can people find you, Caroline? What's your business? I'm going to ask you about how you fill your cup, but just while we're on this tip, if people want to find out more about EMDR, and I know your books are very, very full.
But I do have, so I do run intensives, which is so that I'm still available for those. I'm not taking on kind of one-on-one clients at the moment, but I am taking on clients for intensives, which is like one Saturday morning, 4 hours, and we blitz it. It's hard work, but very rewarding. So, and also I'm going to be putting in place some groups in the near future. So, that's a really exciting development. So my business is called The Therapy Nest, and my website is therapynest.com.au. So,
and we'll have all the details in the show notes too that people can find.
Thank you.
What do you do to fill your cup? Like, you sound busy, busy, busy. Yeah. What do you do to fill your cup?
Yeah, so I love gardening. I do love reading, but I don't really have time to read very much anymore. But I do have 4 acres. I'm on 4 acres. So gardening actually takes up a fair bit of my...
Gorgeous. Where are you located? Where?
In Upper Beaconsfield, so the outskirts of Melbourne.
So Victoria.
Victoria.
4 acres. Love.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful property. So so I love the gardening and spending time with my family. Yeah.
And is your GP, your general practice, is that there or in Melbourne? Is that Upper Beaconsfield or Melbourne?
It's in Berwick. Yeah.
Berwick.
Yeah.
Where's that?
So that's in the outskirts of Melbourne, in the southeast suburbs of Melbourne.
I know we've got a lot of listeners in Melbourne.
Yeah.
A lot are international, so they'd have no idea where that is, but that's okay. You can do online. You can do online.
Okay. We can do online. Yes, absolutely.
So your property fills your cup.
Yes.
Or kids.
Walking, reading, kids. Yeah, not that they require very much attention nowadays.
I know, same with mine. So, which is kind of good, but it's a different relationship, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, Caroline, that has been absolutely beautiful. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to pop on the podcast. And if anybody wants to connect with you, the details are in the show notes, and Caroline would be more than happy, I'm sure, to do that. So thank you. Hugs, happiness to you.
Thank you so much. It was a delight to talk to you. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you. And if anybody, for those of you who are listening and you'd like to stay connected with the Happiness Hive, jump over to the website, thehappiness-hive.com, sign up to the newsletter. So you've just got to scroll down to the bottom, sign up to the newsletter, and there'll be lots of updates for you there too. So happiness to you all. Bye.